Number 10. Carol and Jane Kent. These two alternate Supergirls, Superwomen, may not have the flashiest of costumes, but they get some bonus hotness points for being the capable, smart, and eventually futuristic versions of Supergirl. In the miniseries Superman Secret Identity, there doesn't appear to be a cousin to Superman that we are introduced to. Instead, he meets his own alternate version of Lois, falls in love, and the two have a family together. Their two twin daughters, Carol and Jane, don't initially appear to have superpowers as they grow up, but once they are young adults, Clark thinks he spots them in the sky, and eventually it is revealed that they are this alternate universe's Supergirl twin team. Two Supergirls is better than one Supergirl. Number 9. New 52 Supergirl. This version of Supergirl ended up becoming a Red Lantern. She was pulled to the side of confusion and rage after she crash landed on Earth and was met by a man claiming to be Kal-El, her cousin. This confused version of Kara didn't believe him, as her last memory of her cousin was of him as a baby, and she didn't know that her pod had been stuck in orbit around the sun for about 2 decades, giving Superman, who got to Earth first, enough time to grow up while Kara remained frozen as a teenager in her pod, not aging. After their fight, Kara left Earth to investigate. Eventually, the rage she felt over the loss of Krypton and her guilt as a survivor prompted a Red Lantern ring to seek her out. New 52 Supergirl wears a small one-piece bodysuit instead of a top and skirt. This shows off more of her legs, but also I think makes more sense than a skirt, given all the flying she does. She also has a really sweet cape. Number 8. AME-COMI Supergirl. In this reality, Supergirl is actually the cousin to PowerGirl and is sent after as the older cousin to take care of younger PowerGirl. But PowerGirl arrives on Earth far ahead of her older cousin, so by the time Supergirl Kara Zor-El arrives, PowerGirl is now the older of the two. Supergirl here is drawn in a more anime style, and her crop top appears to be a little bit shorter. Her cape also sometimes appears to be longer, and 3 sort of separate pieces of fabric that trail behind her as she flies. Number 7. Kara Inzi. For those who originally were introduced to the world of comics via cartoons or animated series, this alternate version of Supergirl from the DCAU may hold a special place in your heart, and perhaps in your loins. Kara Inzi appeared in the Superman animated series in the 90s and Justice League Unlimited. For some, her determination, bravery, and overall sassiness were the main appeal. Her original outfit was actually taken from comic alternate Linda Danvers. Although the show wanted to use the name Kara Zor-El and bring Supergirl into the then DCAU just straight up, DC at the time said no to their request, forcing them to create an alternate inspired version of Supergirl known as Kara Inzi. This was because of DC's precedent at the time that Superman remained the only surviving Kryptonian. There can only be one. Number 6. Galatea. Galatea is the evil clone of Kara Inzi from the DCAU. This version of Kara goes by the name Galatea, has shorter cut hair, and is often portrayed as an older version of Supergirl. She more closely resembles PowerGirl, despite being a fairly straight-up clone of Supergirl. Galatea was created by Star Labs, who got their hands on Supergirl's genetic material while she was in their medical care, after she had been caught in the explosion of a kryptonite missile. Galatea fought with Supergirl after the two discovered that they were psychically linked. Galatea was wounded in that fight and forced to retreat and recover at Star Labs, where she was also artificially aged to the point of her physical prime, granting her more power, enhanced strength, and a more developed figure and stature. She's taller. Number 5. Linda Danvers. Linda Danvers is an alternate version of Supergirl who is also super confusing. But because I am a fan of confusing things and I'm a fan of her cute outfit, I wanted to include her on this list, so I'm going to do my best to try to explain who exactly she is. Matrix was the version of Supergirl who merges with Linda Danvers to become an all-new version of Supergirl. Who or what is Matrix? Well, basically Matrix is a shape-shifting entity created by a good-ish version of Lex Luthor and given that universe's Lana Lang's memories. Matrix merged with the Linda Danvers as she lay dying, causing them to become one entity in order to save Linda's life. Except that Linda then also kind of had her own separate consciousness. separate from Matrix. Sometimes one of them is stronger, more of a dominant presence in their body than the other. Matrix could now only shift between the two forms of brunette Linda and a blonde Supergirl, and later finds out that when merging with Linda at the time of her death, they actually became a new being also referred to as an Earthborn Angel. In their case, an Earthborn Angel of Fire. This version of Supergirl was hot and brave enough to have Superman of Earth 1 fall in love with her, which is kind of creepy because a little incestuous, but also not really incestuous because alternate Earths. While also being kind of sweet. Creepy and sweet. Ugh. Number 4, Sirel. This alternate version of Supergirl is actually from a potential future. She initially claims to be the daughter of Superman and Lois Lane, after Lois Lane freaks out thinking Superman had an affair in the future that leads to Sirel being born. While Superman is confirmed to be her genetic father, Lois is not confirmed to be her genetic mother. In the end, we find out that she was actually made by Brainiac 12 using Superman's genetic material, and that she has an alter ego residing within her, a woman named Mia, who hates both Sirel and Superman. In the end, Sirel ends up sacrificing herself to save her father and humanity from the Yes virus, which she was designed to spread, and from the violent future that the virus would have created. She's another strange, but still quite hot, alternate version of Supergirl. Apparently, we'd like our Supergirls to kind of have confusing backstories. Number 3, DC Bombshell Supergirl. In the alternate universe of the DC Bombshell, Supergirl's pod ends up crash landing in Russia instead of America. She is then taken in by a Russian couple, Apati and Varvara, who raise her alongside their daughter, Courtney Duganova. Courtney herself was the biological daughter of Varvara, but not of Apati. Varvara had an affair with an Englishman, but was forced to flee to Siberia with her new daughter. It was there that she met and married her husband, Apati. Both sisters end up joining the Russian Air Force, and after Courtney's plane explodes and Kara uses her powers to save her, the Russian government decides to make these two women their new faces of the Russian military. Courtney is given a cosmic staff and becomes, surprise surprise, Stargirl, and Kara, with her Kryptonian powers, is called Supergirl. Number 2, Dark Supergirl. Dark Supergirl was created with black kryptonites. We later find out that she is actually a part of Supergirl herself and is simply the darker, evil parts of her split off. Dark Supergirl ends up taking on members of the Justice League, but in the end was defeated when Wonder Woman ended up accidentally re-merging the good Supergirl and evil Supergirl back into one being, using her lasso of truth. The Dark Supergirl persona remained with Kara for a time, residing within her, and would sometimes kind of pop back up. Eventually it was discovered that this personality split was being caused by Kara's mental health, as she was suffering from severe PTSD and guilt, and in the end, she was able to reconcile this divide by forgiving herself and acknowledging that she was not to blame for the destruction of Krypton. Number 1, POWERGIRL. Okay, well, POWERGIRL isn't really a straight up alternate version of Kara and is more of a completely different person who in continuity existed really before Supergirl, though historically her character wasn't introduced in the comics until the 70s. POWERGIRL is considered one of the hottest characters in DC. Period. Never mind as a potential alternate of anyone. So of course I couldn't have a Supergirl list without mentioning her, even if she is less of an alternate version and more of simply her own character with a similar backstory from an alternate Earth. A lot of people do still consider POWERGIRL to be an alternate version of Supergirl, even though it's really not that cut and dry, but she is also like a version of Supergirl, I guess. Earth 2 Supergirl, if you will. Except that maybe Supergirl is an alternate version of her? I don't know. They're alternates of each other. They're equal. That's all I'm saying about it. Number 10, Harley Quinn and her gang of Harleys. These alternate versions of Harleys have actually been approved by the main gal herself. The gang of Harleys were recruited by Harley herself after Poison Ivy suggested that Harley was overworking and could use some help. Over 80 people applied to join Harley's gang, and so to help her eliminate some of the competition, Harley turns off the lights and tells them to fight one another. This allows her to reduce the number of applicants considerably. The gang has changed slightly over the years, but recently reappeared in DC Black Label's Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, looking fine as ever. I also just love that they have one male Harley Quinn, and I personally think Harley does really well when she creates gangs, like with the Quintets or the current Harley Quinn animated series. There is is strength in numbers for her. Number 9, Dark Prince Charming. This version of Harley Quinn comes to us from Batman the Dark Prince Charming series. This alternate is kind of a brat, but being a brat is considered hot by some, no? I mostly included this Harley here though for her look, which I just think is so different but is also super cute. She's still got that red and black corset vibe, but with a dark tutu. The look for both her and the Joker here is sort of Victorian inspired, with Harley also in a black garter with some red and black thigh highs attached, and some white button-up boots with heels. She wears a white ruffle around her neck, and her hair is done up in 2 almost Elizabethan style combs. Number 8, Bombshell. This version of Harley is turned to madness not so much by the Joker himself, but by a dream version of him. In the DC Bombshells universe, HARLEEN and Mr. J became a sort of Bonnie and Clyde style couple with a Robin Hood attitude. But HARLEEN left Mr. J when she felt he was becoming more dark and dangerous. Instead, she turned to psychology, training and practicing until she became known for her skills as a psychiatrist. She ended up working at Arkham Ward in London, but a dream her patient had of someone who resembled Mr. J set HARLEEN off, causing her to have a psychotic break and become insane. She ends up stealing the female dance partners of some English soldiers at a Christmas party, meets Officer Hal Jordan, seduces him, and steals his plane, and as such is often depicted in a HARLEEN bra-like top and shorts with thigh-high socks and, of course, a bomber jacket. A pretty great look, I must say. Number 7, POWERGIRL. Although this isn't exactly an alternate version of Harley from another universe, it is a dramatic alternate look that I thought was worthy of making this cut. This version of Harley is from the 2016 Harley Quinn series. For a while, Harley finds herself obsessing over POWERGIRL, who actually becomes a friend to Harley, surprisingly. Harley Quinn has always been such a great character because she's so versatile. She can be good, she can be bad, she can wear pretty much anything she wants and make it work. She's just an interesting character who's kind of trying to find out who she really is and wants to be through redesigning her look and exploring different sides of herself, which I think is something we can all relate to at some point. Well, for a while she wanted to be like POWERGIRL, which led her to dressing in a POWERGIRL inspired outfit of her Harley Quinn suit, boob window and all. Number 6, Thrill Killer. In the miniseries Thrill Killer, which takes place on the alternate universe of Earth 37, we meet Haley Fitzpatrick, who is this universe's Harley Quinn. Haley is a high school girl who becomes the partner in crime to this alternate universe's Joker. In this universe, the Joker is still a criminal, but is a female, who is known by the name Bianca Steeplechase. This version of the Joker and Harley do end up being not just partners in crime, but in romance also. And the two, while still being villains, are much kinder to one another, and both seem to genuinely care for each other and reciprocate each other's love for one another. It's like a nicer version of their relationship, to be honest. Number 5, White Knight. This version of Harley leaves the Joker when she realizes the only person he loves is Batman. After the Joker is cured from his insanity, however, she returns to him. The Joker, aka Jack Napier in this version, has just apologized to his Harley Quinn and proposed to her after the real Harley Quinn shows up, revealing the one who was with him at the time was actually an imposter and a fake who took over after the real Harley Quinn disappeared. These two ditch the imposter and set out trying to actually mend their past and learn how to be together and love one another in a healthy way. This version just goes to show how great and supportive a partner Harley can be. And I don't know about you, but I think her kindness and understanding that this alternate shows only elevates her hotness factor. Although I also think that this is also within main Harley as well. This time, her and the Joker stop Batman for the right reasons, becoming the heroes of this story. Number 4, Injustice Harley. After the death of the Joker at Superman's hands in the Injustice universe, Harley finds herself teaming up with the good guys to avenge his death. Whether we are talking video games or comics here, this version of Harley looks good either way, and she also kinda is good. Her blonde hair is up in her famous red and blue tipped pigtails, and she wears goggles on her head. Kind of a similar look to her DC Bombshell version, actually. This version of Harley works on the side of Batman and the Insurgency, and later on works surprisingly closely with Green Arrow as well. She prefers to go by her real name, Harleen. In the video games, she is also voiced by Tara Strong, whose Harley voice is known for being a fan favorite. Who's your favorite voice for Harley Quinn? Who's your favorite voice actor to play her? Let us know in the comments. Number 3, Harleen. This version of Harley is one of the most stunning just because of how beautifully she is illustrated Illustrated. This version of Harley comes to us from the DC Black Label book HARLEEN, which explores the origins of Harley Quinn, her budding romance with the Joker, and her descent into madness. It has got to be one of the best books for helping you to understand just how racy and dangerous the romance was between these two, and how powerful those initial sparks were. The art by Steven Sedgwick also just lends really well to the ultra steamy, secretive feel of this risque version of the psychiatrist known as Harleen Quinzel. Number 2. Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie has played Harley Quinn in both the films Suicide Squad and Harley Quinn Birds of Prey, and both times she has killed it. She is likely one of the hottest versions of Harley because her version of Harley is real life. Or as close as we'll get to real life Harley anyways. Granted, it's not just Robbie alone, but an entire crew of professionals who help bring hers and DC's vision of the character to life. And stunt doubles, who help to make Harley look just as badass as ever. Although Margot Robbie proudly tries to do as many stunts as possible and as many as the studios will let her do. And it's not just the fact that this version of Harley is live action that adds to her appeal, but that Robbie makes Harley's sometimes ridiculous or dramatic struggles feel so grounded and somehow relatable. Number 1. Batman Animated Series. We can't talk about the hotness that is Harley Quinn without paying tribute to the version of her that originally got everyone hooked. Now, can we? This version of Harley was voiced by Arlene Sorkin. Sorkin is really the one who made Harley's voice as iconic as it is today. Now it feels weird if Harley is without her high-pitched tone or New York accent. Harley in the animated series was a very loyal companion of the Joker's, and many fans still prefer her full suited gesture costume than any other look she has had over the years, proving that no matter how much or how little clothing Harley wears, she makes almost any outfit look good, with her winning wit and silly yet dark sense of humor. I think what many fans really loved about this version of Harley was how smart and brilliant yet underappreciated she was. Also, her loyalty. No matter how many times Joker put her down, she stayed very loyal to her puddin', as problematic as their relationship was, or how many times he tried to kill her.
And at number 10, we've got Supergirl. While some of you may argue that she should be at a higher spot on this list, there's just something innocent about Supergirl that makes it feel a little bit weird objectifying the crap out of her. But regardless, Kara is definitely an undeniable babe. Kara Zor-El first arrived on the scene in 1958, but didn't take up the alias of Supergirl until 1959 in Action Comics number 252. She's Superman's cousin and suffers from the same vulnerability of kryptonite as he does. She even has a show on the CW all about her, which goes to show how long of a way she's come from being an underrated teen sidekick in her first comic book appearance. And at number 9, we've got White Canary. Here's a little shout out to another CW show, Legends of Tomorrow. This is Sarah Lance. She's a part of the Arrowverse as the White Canary, who is partially based off of the Black Canary, and used to be an assassin before turning to the light side. Originally a villain for Green Arrow, Sarah is one of the lead characters in a time-traveling assault team determined to take down Vandal Savage. She's also a fan favorite with the LGBT community. Clearly, she's known for charming the hell out of a lot of women throughout her time travels, and actually at the start of season 2 is promoted to captain of the Wave Rider and leader of the Legends when Rip disappears. And at number 8 is Jessica Jones. While her comic book persona may be a tad bland in the sex appeal department, there's no denying that Kristen Ritter's portrayal of Jessica Jones on the Netflix show is super hot. Who doesn't love an independent badass with a mild drinking problem? I know I do. Plus, did you see that sex scene with Luke Cage? Damn. And there's a whole lot of shippers out there who think that her and Trish might actually end up together in season 2. Once again, damn. Number 7. Batwoman. This is the first of a few redheads to make it on our list. Batwoman has a long history in the Batman canon, first appearing as one of the members of the Batman family in Detective Comics 233. As most of you know, the creation of the Bat family was partly inspired by Frederick Wortham's claim that Batman and Robin were depicted as gay in the comics. Well, wouldn't Wortham be turning in his grave if he found out what Batwoman has been up to these days? Or at least in J.H. William III's portrayal of her. Regardless, this more recent version of Kate Kane is an ex-military woman turned vigilante, playing by her own rules. And that's pretty damn cool. And at number 6, we've got Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There's so much I could say about Buffy Summers. A girl who kicks butt, wields a stake, stops the world from ending multiple times, and still manages to maintain a relatively normal life throughout high school? Pretty damn impressive. But she has some high standards, you guys. She has a tendency to date 100-year-old vampires. But sexy ones at least. And she's also one hell of a role model. Especially Joss Whedon's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which had its 20th anniversary recently. It's still a show that resonates with a lot of fans, old and new, today. At number 5, we've got Batgirl. Barbara Gordon has been through some guys. ties. She's got the pressure of being Commissioner Gordon's daughter, her brother is a psychopath, the Joker shot her and paralyzed her in The Killing Joke, and then she was Oracle but rocked being a superhero in a wheelchair. Then she recovered and is now dealing with a whole lot of trauma. It's a lot. The new version of Batgirl is a total sexy hipster living in Gotham's version of Brooklyn, and she's living with the age-old dilemma of trying to have a normal life while being a superhero. Her costume is also one of the most practical female costumes these days. She wears Doc Martens, a leather jacket, and a snap-off cape. A bit of a step up from the versions of the character's costume previously. But one thing is for sure, Batgirl has always been an incredibly fun character and is definitely a fan favorite. And at number 4 we've got Red Sonja. Well, hello there, tiny little bikini armor. Sonja is a Viking warrior. Think Xena, but less clothes. First appearing in 1934, Red Sonja appeared in Conan the Barbarian series before getting her own solo one. Now penned by Gail Simone, who is arguably one of the most talented and progressive writers in comics today, she's been described as mayhem, blood, sex, and red hair. What's not to love? Number 3. Catwoman. You can't help but associate the name Catwoman with sex appeal. Unfortunately for Catwoman, her storylines tend to get overly sexualized because of this, sometimes making her character lack some three-dimensional depth. But that's it though. Also, for the record, even though Halle Berry is a total babe, let's just collectively decide to pretend that Catwoman movie did not happen. Number 2. Storm. Speaking of Halle Berry, next on the list is another superhero that she portrays in the X-Men movies, Storm. Storm gets the number 2 spot for many reasons. First, she's an incredibly powerful mutant. Second, she gave up a life of being praised as a god to go help Professor X fight crime. So she's pretty damn selfless. And third, literally every costume Storm has ever had is totally hot, and her hair is always on point. Even though I'm not a huge fan of her gold bikini costume, Storm has always been fashion conscious, and it goes a long way. Plus, I'm sure dating someone who can control the weather would definitely have its perks. And finally, at number 1, we're wrapping our list up with Wonder Woman. How could we not? Although sometimes she wasn't given the greatest story arcs in the comics, there's literally an arc where she's unemployed and works at a fictional version of Taco Bell. Wonder Woman has always stood as a symbol of heroism and American pride. And let's not forget that her creator, American psychologist William Moulton Marston, was pretty hardcore into bondage, and much of her costume and accessories were inspired by his interests. And at number 10 is Witchblade. Starting off this list is an entity that is the offspring of the primal forces of the universe, Witchblade. So yeah, it's a gauntlet and a male in nature, but every host that Witchblade takes, for the most part, is female. And well, let's just say it kinda has a preference for picking out some of the more stellar looking babes. There's the first wielder, Una, a cave woman. Then we had Cleopatra, Red Sonja, Joan of Arc, Queen Kajani, Roxanne LaRocque, and even Lara Croft, real briefly, to name a few. And of course, it's present day wielder Sarah Pazzini, a New York police detective. Oh, and Danielle Baptiste, a ballet dancer. The two share the duty of wielding it, and it does not like to be separated, which sometimes makes for interesting conflict between the two. Up next at number 9 is Jean Grey. Jean Grey feels like an obvious choice for this list, even though, you know, we left her out on the last part. But hey, she's here now. First appearing in 1963's X-Men 1 as Marvel Girl, Jean was X-Men's first and only female member at the time, and at that point she was only telekinetic, later on to be given telepathy, which was retconned as being one of her suppressed abilities. In the earlier days, she was one of the weaker members of the team until Chris Claremont began to mold her in the late 70s, making her into one of the most powerful characters with her transformation into Phoenix, it being his attempt at creating the first female cosmic hero. And Dark Phoenix? Well, super deadly and super hot. What's not to love? Up next at 8 is Zatanna. Zatanna single-handedly proves that magic can be sexy. From that tuxedo outfit to the fact that she is an incredibly powerful sorceress, it's hard to not be enchanted by her. She also knows how to put on one hell of a show, being a skilled illusionist, showgirl, and stage magician, all of which she doesn't rely on her natural-born powers to do. She's also quite talented at divination and hand-to-hand combat. And at number 7 is Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch has the ability to alter reality. Created in 1964 by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, many saw her as the token female character of the Avengers, but similar to Jean Grey, she also became a much more powerful character as time went on, after an unfortunate and embarrassing stint with the Lady Liberators, that is. Over time, her style shifted too, going with a more goth-esque look, something which translated well over to the Avengers Age of Ultron film with Elizabeth Olsen portraying her. And at number 6 is Huntress. Huntress has been portrayed by 3 different women, but one thing has always stayed consistent between all of her incarnations. She's always been incredibly hot. The character's first appearance as Paula Brooks featured her as a supervillain in the Golden Age, and then in the Bronze Age, we were introduced to Helena Wayne, who was the daughter of Batman and Catwoman on Earth 2. And let's be honest, girl definitely inherited inherited some good genes. After the New 52, a new Huntress is given to us in the form of Helena Bertinelli. She's violent and unpredictable according to Batman, but he doesn't like a bit of a wild card. And at 5 we have Gamora. Sexy alien? Why yes. Beyond general sex appeal, Gamora is a total badass. She's the last of her species, the adopted daughter of Thanos, and went through some pretty hardcore shit in the process with that, and is an elite combatant, holding her own against some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. And she's been romantically entangled with a few of those powerful beings, including Nova and Adam Warlock. Plus with Zoe Saldana portraying her in the Guardians films, I don't think we'll be losing sight of Gamora anytime soon. Up next at 4 is Rogue. A self-described Southern belle, there's something quite enchanting about this runaway who absorbs others' powers when she touches them, and she has an almost tragic response to her abilities, referring to them as more of a curse than a gift. When it comes to the attraction fans have to her, well, she has multiple accolades to show for. She was number 4 on IGN's Top 10 X-Babes back in 2006, and 10th in Comic Buyer's Guide's 100 Sexiest Women in Comics list. Not too shabby, Rogue. And at number 3 is Black Widow. Black Widow has always been seen as a sex symbol in the Marvel Universe. While some have critiqued the MCU for not giving the character enough development compared to the other Avengers, in the comics, Natasha's arc from immoral assassin to one of the good guys is actually quite nuanced, and in terms of abilities, she's got a lot going on. She's an expert in karate, judo, jujitsu, boxing, various styles of kung fu, and is a master weapons specialist with extensive espionage training. And Scarlett Johansson? I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Moving on. In at 2 is Psylocke. Psylocke, aka Elizabeth Betsy Braddock, started off as a supporting character in her twin brothers series, Captain Britain, but she eventually made her own way, working with the X-Men and donning the alias Psylocke in 1986. So what can she do? This natural-born leader is telekinetic, telepathic, is capable of precognition, is an expert martial artist, and can construct weapons out of her psychic energy. She was actually declared by Marvel as their second favorite superhero 2011 due to her tremendous and thankless heroism. And what do other people think? Well, she's often referred to as a hot ninja girl or an Asian gal with an incredible body and a British accent. I mean, they're not wrong. And finally, in at number 1 is Emma Frost. Also known as the White Queen, Emma Frost is a mutant who has transformed from supervillain to superhero since her first appearance in 1980. From her dry wit to her exceptional telepathic abilities, it's not just her classy aesthetic that has people's tongues a-wagging. She's capable of mind control, memory alteration, and can shapeshift into solid diamond with superhuman strength, durability, and psychic immunity. Frost has always been one of the more iconically scantily clad characters in the Marvel Universe, with the typical explanation for this being that Frost is confident in her sexuality and prefers to wear more revealing clothes, although she's supposed to be a bit of a fashionista. This argument actually spawned something called the Emma Frost Redesign Project on Tumblr, where fans went wild with giving this total babe of a character a diverse and intriguing new wardrobe. You guys should check it out. In at number 10 is Dazzler. While Dazzler's ability to superhero, yes I made that a verb, don't hate, has always been a bit of a laughingstock. If we throw the bad publicity stunts and rollerblades aside and look at the human she is, well, we'd all really appreciate one of her finer qualities, the fact that she is super hot and knows how to bust a move. If Dazzler was just a regular old human with no powers and didn't live amongst superheroes, I'm fairly certain her charm and dance abilities would put her on many more people's radars. Just saying. Feel like a bro. Up next, number 9 is Wolfsbane. A little edginess never hurt anyone. With the ability to transform into a wolf or a werewolf, Wolfsbane is definitely a character that may not immediately come to mind when thinking of the hottest female superheroes. But this Scottish mutant shouldn't be disregarded. She's like really cool. She was part of the original New Mutants, where Cypher, her boyfriend during that time, actually took a bullet to save her. While she does have lycanthropy, it isn't rooted in a magical source. Rather, it comes from a mutant X gene. Oh, and she also had a biker phase. Up next, number 8 is Rogue. How the hell have we not talked about Rogue on this series yet? Damn it, guys. I'm sorry. Are we dropping the ball? We're dropping the ball. I guess better late than never, right? Anyway, self-deprecating aside, let's take a look at Rogue. She's awesome. She has a smoking hot relationship with one of Marvel's other most fantasized over male heroes, Gambit. They're like walking sex. Aside from aesthetics, she's definitely not someone you want to mess with, especially considering her absorption powers via her touch. Maybe not the kind of hero you want to hook up with on a whim. Up next at 7 is MERA. So we've talked a little bit about MERA on one of our other hottest something objectifying all the heroes regardless of their genders lists, and it's about time she made this list. She's the former queen of the dimension Aqua. She's got one of the best romantic relationships in comics with Aquaman, and she can form hard water objects. Also, Amber Heard as MERA. Yep, pretty damn great. Up next, number 6 is Miss Marvel, aka Kamala Khan. Kamala is a character that's pretty damn awesome and beloved by many. She's fairly new to the Marvel Universe and first appeared in 2013 and is a Pakistani American born in Jersey City. She assumed the mantle of Miss Marvel after Carol Danvers became Captain Marvel, and she discovered that she has inhuman genes, and thus begins her journey where she navigates young adulthood while being a superhero. Ah, the struggle. And if all that's not interesting enough, it's worth noting that the first volume of her series won the Hugo award for Best Graphic Story in 2015. She's fast becoming a fan favorite, and you should definitely check out her comics if you haven't already. Up next, number 5 is Spider-Woman. When you hear Spider-Woman's name, what may come to mind for some of you is that ridiculous cover where her body's proportions make 0 sense and just like ooze curves. Human body doesn't move that way, guys. You can draw sexy in an atomically correct way. Just saying. It's been done. Stupid cover aside though, she's super hot. Looking specifically at Jessica Drew here. She first appeared in 1977, and even though she was killed and then replaced by other women who took up the mantle, she had longevity as a character and returned in the New Avengers, and later got her second self-titled limited series. That would then evolve into an ongoing one that was cut short due to Secret Wars, but has been relaunched since. Up next, number 4 is ELEKTRA. Created by Frank Miller in 1981, ELEKTRA is undeniably a total badass. Master assassin, master martial artist, killed a bunch of dudes who tried to assault her when she was 9, and she did the killing when she was 9. She's a bit of an anti-hero, having previously sided with the Hand, and after dying and being resurrected and then enduring some good old mystical fun times, she worked with S.H.I.E.L.D. for a bit, and then a whole lot more happened that we won't get into right now because it's a short video. But long story short, this Olympic level athlete, who also happens to be a low level telepathic, is overall quite impressive. Plus, have you seen her on Netflix's Daredevil? Yeah. Damn. In at number 3 is Medusa. A product of the Silver Age, Medusa first hit the scene in 1965, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. She's a thief, has prehensile hair, and all the fun superhuman enhanced abilities you can imagine. Strength, speed, stamina, the whole 9 yards. You guys know the drill. Medusa is inhuman royalty, and those red locks of hers are nothing short of majestic. Each strand of her hair has greater strength, elasticity, and resistance than an iron wire of the same thickness, and she can animate her hair to move it however she pleases. How useful. That might be a sex joke, I don't know. And at number 2 is Silk Spectre 2. For clarification here, we're talking Laurie, not Sally. And while Sally has a very important history in the context of the Watchmen narrative, which very much involves her being quite the sex symbol back in the day, Laurie becomes the Silk Spectre readers and audiences grow to relate to and adore throughout the plot. Laurie hasn't had the easiest of upbringings, and when she was of age filled her mother's shoes. Or rather, heels. Aside from being smoking hot, thank you for that slow motion shot, Zack Snyder, she's a complex character who symbolizes more than just the achievement of sexual fantasies, read Night Owl 2. Laurie is the embodiment of the every woman, along with Dan's every man, left questioning whether their good intentions really play a consequential part to the grander scheme of all things. And finally, in at number 1 is She-Hulk. We talked about another attractive green lady on our part 2 list, Gamora, so it only feels right for us to bring Jennifer Walters into the mix too. And guys, she's a total babe. And if you disagree, hear me out. Despite getting a negative and honestly kind of unfair rep for being promiscuous, Jennifer Walters has the brains and brawn and charisma that just keeps compelling those around her. She's impressively strong, impressively smart, and charming as f. Aside from a weird hookup with Juggernaut in an alternate timeline, you can't deny that her hookups and relationships have been pretty darn steamy. In terms of personality, she's got it going on, and objectively, she's very physically attractive, even if green ain't your thing. She even chose to stay in her She-Hulk form versus going back to her human form like Bruce does, all because she feels more comfortable that way. Confidence is sexy, guys.
Number 10. Harley Quinn from Suicide Squad in the DCEU. So this Harley look from the not too well received film has become iconic. The amount of Harley cosplays that were transformed by this costume cannot be denied. The year that film was released, this costume skyrocketed Harley to the #1 Halloween costume for girls. However, despite this, there were some who weren't fans. Criticisms were launched at the film for objectifying Harley and for making her a victim of the male gaze, to the point where in 2020, the director of the spin-off film Birds of Prey, later changed to Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey for marketing purposes, forced the Suicide Squad director David Ayer to apologize for the costume, which he did at first, but then kinda sorta took back what he said when he realized some people were just gonna come for him and it didn't matter whatever he said. You're not gonna stop seeing this costume anytime soon though. Love it or hate it, it most certainly is a look. Number 9. Starfire. Starfire is one of those characters who has come to be known for being hot, and during the New 52 reboot, that hit a crescendo when some pool, bathing suit, and just her general costume for the early time of that era hit for some what was deemed to be too much or too spicy territory. It was essentially 2 cups of fabric. Someone somewhere could be fapping to that, and that's not okay, apparently. Someone call the Prude Patrol. Honestly, how you feel about stuff like this is going to vary, but it definitely stuck in some people's minds, and some argue there are sexy characters who will always look sexy and then less sexy ones, and that just depends. However, others redrew her in her costume saying that they were impractical and that she was going to break her spine. There have been many takes. Number 8. Sue Storm from the 90s. Ah yes, the 90s. The Fantastic Four costume that was essentially a bathing suit with a 4-shaped boob window cutout. This was a thing. Lots of people got new costumes in the 90s, and Sue was one of them. I mean, her husband Reed got a vest. But why did hers cause such a kerfuffle for some? Well, cause she's a mom, that's why. And that's not allowed for some people. When moms are objectified or made sexy, that's not okay. Tasteful MILFs only. Again, all of this is a matter of taste, but some felt this costume was over the line and disrespectful to the type of character Sue was, which for many was not one meant to be oogled overtly, or ogled, however you say it. Also, some just don't care for 90s costumes. It is an era that is oftentimes mocked, which has also led for it to have a defense squad. Do you like this costume? Share down below. Number 7. Namor the Submariner. Whenever you're having a discussion about equal opportunity cheesecake, which I mean, why wouldn't you be, Namor tends to come up, credited as the man wearing essentially a Speedo since his inception. It takes confidence and commitment to be that exposed, especially when as many people have beef with you as they do with Namor. These days, Namor also has a more tasteful wetsuit style thing going on, but this green bottoms number has made several queer costumes lists, and is often cited as, oh, so you say Starfire is sexy? I raise you Namor, King of Atlantis. I wonder what Namor thought of Sue's 4-shaped boob window. Probably liked it. Number 6. Cosmic Boy. This was a look, wasn't it? We're talking about his 70s costume, which could easily be transported onto a female character, but did cause some raised eyebrows on a male one, just because of convention and expectation. This costume is doing the most, and some have a hard time taking it seriously. But again, it makes those homoerotic costumes lists, and for many, it's best left forgotten. I don't know, I kinda like it. Impractical costumes for all, I say. That's part of the fun. Let your imagination just run wild. I like to imagine he just still keeps it in his closet somewhere. Number 5. Ms. Marvel Carol Danvers. Ms. Marvel had a few costumes back in the day. Her first was just a feminized version of Captain Marvel's, but she would eventually get what for some was her most iconic costume. The black onesie with yellow lightning bolt across the chest and sash, red sash. And this was the look for years. It was popular at cons for cosplayers too. However, after becoming Captain Marvel in 2012, there was backlash against this sash costume as sexist or lessening her character in some way. Like, we needed to put this costume back in the box and ignore it. Just, Carol has had a hard time as a character for the past few years because she's often a battleground for fans and fandom and ideologies. So she can be utilized different ways by writers. So there's often much going on behind the scenes with her stories that sometimes leads to her herself as a character being lost. I liked this costume, not gonna lie. Sucker for a lightning bolt. Number 4. Star Sapphires. With Green Lantern Rebirth, the return of Hal Jordan, not the comic tied to DC Rebirth, there were some changes made to the Green Lantern mythos. One of those was the introduction of the light spectrum, the emotion core. Now, Star Sapphire and the concept of the Zamarons, and Star Sapphires in general, had been around for a bit, but it was the costumes they sported during the build-up to the War of Light that drew the attention of some. With massive cuts down the middle, it's essentially that Cosmic Boy costume, but in pink. Or lilac. There were numerous reverse this. Why aren't there men in the core? Because it would look ridiculous. Cosmic Boy disagrees. The costumes would eventually be made more uniform-like with the chests covered, which I don't know. I mean, I know they have shielding because they're power rings, but it's very cold in space. I'm glad they're not cold anymore. Number 3, Emma Frost. The White Queen. Thanks to Grant Morrison, she can make a superhero list because during this run, she would start a redemption arc with the X-Men that would even see her become a teacher at Xavier's school, though she's still pretty firmly an anti-hero. And few have forgotten her iconic costume of bustier and cape, and for a time, bikini bottoms. A bustier is a villainous staple, and has definitely made Emma Frost another cosplay darling. People tend to like costumes with something distinct about them, so for Emma with the white fabric, the corset-style top, and the attitude, for some just creates the whole package. Oh, and the thigh-high stockings. All the kinks. Number 2 is ZATANNA. Though this place could also probably have gone to Black Canary, cause fishnets. But ZATANNA also has the whole magician on top thing going on. This at times includes a little tie and a top hat. ZATANNA is actually a pretty old character. She debuted all the way back during the 60s in an issue of Hawkman actually. Number 4 to be precise. Over the years, her physical appeal has definitely been played up and her costume has changed, but for many, the sexiest iteration was the fishnet leggings and magician business apparel style top and hat. Though some that mind her newest costumes either, which veer into corsetty territory. Come on, look at the hat. You gotta love a hat. Number 1, Witchblade. Released initially in 1995, boy does this comic go hard and then some. The adventures of police officer Sarah Pizzini, who comes into possession of the Witchblade, which covers her in a barely there Species-esque costume, was incredibly well received. This costume grabs attention, also because it's so cool. It's got this metalish element, like heavy metal, not metal. That means it can be drawn distinctly every time. Plus, just in general, how she was drawn. She's a sexy loose cannon who gets results. Witchblade has a lot of cheesecake, but also a lot of plot. It's not for everyone, but I mean nor is anything else.